Hi, I'm Kelly at Book and Paper Arts, and today I have a flip through of my latest illustrated journal, my travel diary of my trip to France. It is going to be a little bit of talking about my trip, some armchair travel, but I'm also going to be talking about the techniques that I have used throughout these pages. So if you keep your own illustrated journal or are thinking about it, and if you're thinking about it, you really should. I hope that this will give you some ideas. If you like journal arts, altered books, vintage books, paper, and other ephemera, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and be sure and turn on the notifications, and you will have more of them in your life. This notebook is by Hana Mula. I have been using their books for about 3 years now. They do make them in portrait mode, but I really like this landscape layout. I went with a heavy watercolor paper. It's about 135 pounds or 200 GSM. I may have gone a little bit too heavy. I think next time I will go back to their lighter book. That's 140 GSM or 95 pounds in weight. So that's my ideal weight for a sketchbook. I will put a link to the name Hana Mula so you can look that up if you're curious about what they're like. I do some sketching and drawing, but I really like to make pages using found papers, otherwise known as free art supplies. And these are just wrappers from sandwiches and baguettes and some cheese there. And I just glued those down and made a little collage. I'm not really confident with my urban sketching, that is street sketching, but I thought I would go really nuts and give it a try. So I was sitting in a cafe and I saw this couple and I just really quickly added just a very few lines just to get a gesture or an impression. And when it turned out okay-ish, I took my time and added some trees and buildings. And I'm not unhappy with how it turned out as an early effort. I'm not concerned that my chairs don't have 4 legs or that it doesn't have perspective. It definitely conjures up the memory of this day. I do like to sit in cafes a lot when I'm traveling. I can't really do that where I live here in Wales because it rains 320 days a year. So when I'm traveling, I do love to sit in outdoors and just draw what I see. I usually add the words later, so the drawings are visual notes. I do draw a lot of water bottles and bread baskets. That's because when my food, I really love enjoying my meals. And when the food arrives, I want to give it my attention. But before it arrives, I'm drawing what I'm looking at on the table. Bread baskets and water bottles. Just saying. I visited the abbey where Eleanor of Aquitaine spent her last days. And in the abbey is this tomb effigy. And I drew it, but I really didn't have the nerve to try to add her face. And that's okay. You don't have to be perfect in all the details. Just do what you feel comfortable with. There are several good lessons about these pages. I was sitting in a cafe working in my book, and this lovely little boy, 10 years old, came and stood behind my shoulder and asked me what I was doing. These books are great icebreakers. So he and I chatted for a few minutes, and I said, well, I'm drawing what I'm looking at, and then I'm adding my words. He went back to his parents and then came back 20 minutes later with this and asked if I wanted it for my book. Lesson number 1. This 10-year-old boy, I think, already knows more about perspective than I do, because his building's really pretty good. 2, he did not have a lot of fancy art supplies with him. He had a ballpoint pen and a piece of notebook paper, and he made this charming page. Next lesson. So did his 7-year-old sister, Anouk. She was not intimidated by the fact that she couldn't draw this building well. She just drew it, and with brio and style and fun. And final lesson, I added these to my book, and now they just really conjure up the day and the memory. And that is what these books are meant to do best. So thank you, Gabrielle and Anouk. This is a detail from a cloister in Trevor Abbey. This is also a Trevor Abbey, and I made this again with found papers. I probably can't draw an abbey this well. But what I can do is cut with the best of them, fussy cut. So I had this brochure that they gave me when I visited the abbey, and inside was a photograph, which I just cut out. And then there was also a photograph of these tomb effigies of Eleanor of Aquitaine and Henry II. In France, they are called gisants. So I did my imperfect drawing of one, but then I also have these photos that add some detail. These splotches, whenever I have a new sketchbook, before I take it on the road, I like to mess up my pages a little bit to make the blank papers less intimidating. So I go throughout. I made some splotches with avocado ink. Here I've made splotches with tea. I just pour on some tea, squish the pages, let them dry, and then you have a little bit of a background to work into. And it's fun and adds interest to the eye. These pages were made at probably my favorite part of this whole trip. And it was a 9th century Carolingian sanctuary in the middle of nowhere in Crevant-les-Couteaux. And it was old and mysterious, and I just felt very moved there. I went a couple of times. I have a whole longer video about how I made these pages of these disparate elements of the sanctuary. And I will put a link to that in the text below this video in case you would like to see how this page got made. And a view of the sanctuary as well. I visited another church, and it had these exquisite carvings on the slate floor throughout the whole thing. And one was of this dove, and whose bill intercepts this nimbus halo. So I did a floor rubbing. And I also did a quick sketch of it. I have not added my text yet. Probably after this video, I will go have a cup of tea and do a little bit of writing there. I love pockets. And I added this one here. I bought some stamps, so that's just a little bag that I got at the post office. And now I have a place to put my postcards. Postcards are great when you're traveling. They give you memories, but they also give you a reference. So I want to draw this crypt from a church that was in Tavannes. And I didn't have time. I was too busy enjoying the trip. But now I have these postcards, and I'm going to sit down and draw that in a few days. A map is always a good thing to add to your diary, whether it's of a trip or your everyday. This is the River Vienne. This is where I stayed for 3 weeks. The Quai Jeanne d'Arc. This was my favorite cafe. There's the fortress. Here's where the flea market was, and so on. So years from now, this will really bring back where I walked and sat and explored. These pages are also made with found papers, brochures. They have a lot of information that I know I'm going to want to refer back to, and also some pictures that will help me as reference points if I want to sketch those as I have a little more time. So I just glued down one side, and now I can pull it out. It's interactive. No, it's not. And the same thing, I've just glued down the back. I'm probably going to add some more decoration or mark making here. In the meantime, I have just painted in with watercolor some chevrons that are the similar colors here and here to kind of pull the page together a little. This is my friend Rob, and we have traveled to France a few times. He is a man who loves a cafe and a flat cap. Let's see. Here is another pocket that I've made from a bag that I bought postcards in. And now I have a place for these little ticket stubs and miscellaneous stuff that I don't really want to glue down because it's got things in the back. If I put them in this little bag, then I can just take them out and play with them. Oh, I added, again with some watercolor, I just painted some blue mark making here. I just felt like that pulled that blue here a little bit to the eye and makes it hold together a little bit better. It's a little prettier. See, this is another brochure from the fortress that I visited that Henry II, this is where he died in the 1100s. Now, I had a brochure for grown-ups, but they had this great brochure for kids that had stickers. So I acted really dumb and got the guy at the reception counter to give me one. Stickers. We obviously take a ton of photos on trips, and then when I got home last week, I printed up a few of them, and I've added them. This is me at a flea market. So I drew this box, and inside of this box, I've added a few of the many things that I bought, and I've just added some captions here. I still have some text to add here, but I'm drawing in a field in front of some church ruins. That was a good day. And this is a detail from a chapel in a church in Lagny-sur-Marne. I always use the back pages of my book for tentative drawings, things that I don't feel really comfortable with. So if they aren't a success, I feel like I can just keep them back here as rough drafts. They're okay. I also have a ton of handwritten notes on the back, and I always do. This is places that I've looked that I just very quickly wanted to jot down so I can look them up later. Just so much stuff. Speaking of, all of these papers are left over. Some of them may get glued into the book, the pages, and maybe not. Sometimes I just stash them in the back here, and that's where they live. And that's okay. I have an online class that talks about how you can make and keep your own illustrated journal, whether it's of a trip or of your everyday life. So if you're curious about that, check it out. The link is in the text below this video. Please let me know if you have any questions or feedbacks in the comments below. And please join me in a few days when I'm going to be back with an art tutorial. Until then, happy making.